it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to the human side, managing fear, change, and skepticism as it relates to AI, a brand new 5-part pulse check series from Enrollify. I'm Carrie Phillips, CCMO at UA Little Rock. In this series, we're talking about the human aspect of AI, how we create cultures that are open to this work, how we bring people who are maybe a little unsure about AI as part of our journey, how we manage fear and manage change. This is going to be a great series, so let's jump right in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Higher Ed Pulse. Today's conversation is hitting at the intersection of two things that are shaping our work, innovation and AI. Some of you may know that Janelle and I were paired together at CASE last year, and we were talking about how our institutions were rethinking structures to make room for innovation. What really struck me then, and I think what still stands true today, is how quickly the idea of innovation has evolved with AI entering the picture. Suddenly we're not just talking about creative problem solving, we're talking about how people adapt, how teams respond, how leaders create cultures for new ways of working. This isn't really so much about the technology, but it's about the innovation, the change management, and the leadership work that happens when a team is tackling these things all together. And we have such a treat today. Janelle has been right in the middle of this kind of work on her campus. Janelle, I am so glad you're here. Let's jump in. Thanks for making the time today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
When you and I first connected at CASE, we were talking about innovation, and I'd love to kind of pick up starting with that thread. What is some of the innovation that's happening right now that you're most excited about at McDaniel?
Yeah, I have to say, at McDaniel, I really am most excited about our structure. So at McDaniel, I serve as the college's Chief Marketing Officer and the Chief Enrollment Officer, leading our Enrollment Management and Marketing division. But I also am leading the development of our constituent engagement model. And I think this is a really innovative structure. It integrates enrollment, marketing, and our institutional advancement colleagues, so our philanthropy fundraising team, advancement services, and it builds a model that's all based around shared relationship development rather than seeing those engagement efforts as different, right? And I think it's interesting when we think about AI, admissions is over in Slate as our database. Advancement is in Razor's Edge, so two completely different databases. Mm-hmm. But we're seeing a lot of the relationship management tools that are being developed in those databases with AI that help us see patterns, personalize our outreach that we can learn from across both divisions.
So you're not using silos a lot, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. That's the goal, is to get rid of those as much as possible. I know you're doing that work too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm curious, as you all use the word innovation on your campus, what does that mean to your campus? Because I think sometimes people hear the word innovation and they automatically shut down or get really nervous or maybe even defensive that those silos are going to be. So how are you using that word? What does it mean on your campus?
Yeah, it's an interesting time in higher ed right now with all of these external forces. So for me, the way I've been thinking about innovation is less sort of chasing new ideas and more as building systems that can really hold up under pressure right now. Yes. So we're seeing a lot of turnover in our enrollment operation. We're seeing a lot of turnover in our institutional advancement operation. The pressures are really real. The financial pressures on institutions, I think, flows down and hits those divisions in really real high stakes ways. And so how do we think about being more explicit about ownership, being clear in our prioritization? How do we design systems that don't rely on a heroic effort of our staff that burns them out, and instead create things that allow us to continue to be trying new things, doing new things, etc.?
So, and I'm really curious about that because you hit on this idea of it shouldn't be this heroic effort that we're burning people out. So from your perspective, how does AI fit into kind of that broader innovation conversation that's happening within your institution?
Yeah, well, both of the areas that I sort of lead in this model are focused on relationship development, right? And so the more that we can take the noise of volume out and allow our staff to focus on what only they can do, which is the meaningful, actual relationship engagement that is personalized to the people that they're talking to, the more effective I think our work is. And so what AI does, I think, is allow us to turn down the volume on some of the noise, right? It allows us to do a better job of focusing our efforts, of knowing who's going to respond to things, et cetera.
So my guess is that you have done a lot of kind of reframing of those moments and taking the fear out of the conversation and trying to reframe this as this gives you the opportunity to focus on the things that only you can do, the things that are most important. And I'm curious, as AI has become kind of this through line that's happening in all of our organizations, is your team approaching this with curiosity, hesitation, excitement, fear? Kind of where are they in this journey?
Yeah, it's funny you use the word curiosity. We have 5 values in our division, and curiosity is the first one. And
I love that.
so I think that we absolutely are jumping in with from a curiosity perspective and a little bit of playfulness too. We've done a lot of fun, in some of our retreats and things where we'll test what the systems can do, where we'll call an AI agent with financial aid questions and see what it feeds back. We've done some fun sort of ideation around it. Certainly a lot of thinking about, what the response was, for example, from math teachers when the calculator came out. And you see some of how similar it is to how people are responding to AI. And now calculators are used everywhere and they've helped us to do higher level math, right? And so we've done a lot of thinking about it in that way. I think leading with curiosity and a little bit of playfulness, because it is fun and it can be funny to have AI do a rap about your division and see what it comes up with,
I want to hear that. I'm here for that. But, one of the things that I'm super curious about is, as you've approached that with that playful spirit and you've tried some things, have you had any examples that you can share with us of this has solved a pain point or it's helped clean up a workflow, something that you're seeing real tangible benefit from?
Yeah, I think that it's hard to come to one use case where I say that AI was sort of the silver bullet solution. What I think it has allowed us to do is question our thinking around our work and ask ourselves, where's there friction that could be solved potentially by AI coming in and removing some of that friction, or especially on the enrollment side, where is there volume that volume is putting so much pressure on our team downstream that we can eliminate some of that volume by using AI tools to help lift up the prospective students and families that really are showing that indicator of interest or that are most likely to enroll. Some of those tools that we've always had, in the enrollment space, especially econometric modeling and things like that, but a much sharper, more real-time ability to find the work that's going to make an impact versus trying to do it all.
And I think you hit on something there, and that's this idea of trying to be intentional and be purposeful in the work. And so with a team that is really focused on innovation, I can imagine there's always this kind of push and pull, that there's this desire to try new things, but there's also this trying to balance not overwhelming everybody, especially with AI and new tools moving so quickly and trying to figure that out. And so I'm curious, from a leadership lens, how are you making those decisions about what's worth pursuing now, what things should wait, and how are you kind of navigating that?
Yeah, my team would tell you that I probably don't always do this very well. I have a tendency to overwhelm, I think, because I get excited by new ideas. Like, change is fun for me, new ideas, new things, that's invigorating and energizing. So I have to be really disciplined myself to not get caught up in it in order to make sure that I don't sort of overwhelm the team. I'm a big believer that supervision is probably the single most important thing in shaping an organization. And so we work really hard, and I work really hard to have the kinds of relationships with my leadership team that allow them to say, this is too much right now, or we have to figure out a prioritization of something that comes off the list so that we can do this new initiative or explore this new thing. I believe that if we prioritize correctly, there's room to do the new, the innovative, to push. And when you hire people that also are energized by that, I think that helps a lot too.
Here's a quick word from our sponsor. Southeast Missouri State University needed to launch more targeted campaigns faster, yet they were bogged down by manual campaign builds, slow approvals, and vendor overload. With Element 451, they eliminated 5 vendor tools and gained marketing superpowers in one platform. They saw a 13% increase in applications, processed applications within 2 days, and achieved 33 to 35% email open rates. The impact: personalized, automated campaigns running at scale without the drag. Ready to turn your next campaign around in hours, not weeks? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents.
I think one of the things that I say all the time is and I'm going to tell myself here a little bit, I'm a dork and that I love a good strategic plan. Like that is invigorating and exciting to me. But I think one of the things sometimes that we are terrible at as, a profession when we do strategic planning is we come up with all these great ideas and we say, oh, let's do this and let's do this and let's do that. And those are wonderful things, but we never go back and look at the things we're doing already and say, what if this, maybe the world has changed and we're in a different spot and we don't need to keep doing this. And so we don't do a good job of taking things off that plate. And so I really love that you talk just then about the importance of saying, like, how does this replace work? Are there things that we can take off of the prioritization to give us the space?
It's tough too, right? Because we're a very collegial industry.
Yeah.
So we had a good example for us is that we used to lay out the sort of employee awards program for our employee awards. And it seems simple, but anything with lots of names is going to go through like 15 rounds of proofing before you get it right. And that is one of those things that to say to our HR colleagues, like, this isn't the best use of our time it feels not very collegial, right? To do that. But that needed to fall off because it was taking up an extraordinary amount of time and wasn't in alignment with the strategic goals in the moment. And there were other ways to achieve that goal. So it is challenging to do that. And I think being able to navigate those conversations while still making sure your colleagues across campus feel valued.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's tough. And I love that collegial piece. I hadn't thought of it in that lens before, but yeah, that's it. That's the root of why those conversations feel sometimes so uncomfortable. One of the things as we think about AI is there are skeptics, and that we need those. My friend Safi Stevenson always talks about, we need those people that are canaries in the coal mine to keep us accountable, to make sure that we're looking at things from all perspectives and that those folks really have value. And so I'm curious if you have had any situations that you've had to navigate where maybe somebody wasn't on board with it, they were very concerned, and you all worked through that process together, and then they were able to see some value, and you were able to come to kind of a happy medium about how this can add value without causing harm or risk.
I'm going to be very honest here and say I'm a slow adopter to things. So I think in this question, I would probably be the skeptic because I tend to really be myself focused on sort of presence, shared moments, what engagement means. Like, the admissions team jokes here that I still hold on to that. Like, I don't want to do an electronic release of admissions decisions quite yet. How do we still have that tactile moment of getting the decision in the mail, right? And I worried that AI might pull us away from that. But that I think divisional culture piece and having that curiosity is one of our values. And that's really the approach for anyone, including the leader, right? Is if we've defined what our values are as a team, and one of ours is curiosity and one of our others is fearlessness. So you think about curiosity and fearlessness together, and we're not going to not explore what this could do for us. We're going to be curious about it. And that kept me, and I think others on our team who might have that skeptic approach, engaged in it rather than dismissive of it. And so I think that once we start to see it in that light, you see that it doesn't replace the human work. It protects the human work. If we can think about it in that lens, I think that that's how we as a team have been able to move through it, both on the enrollment side and on the philanthropy side, is that it allows us to do the human work.
I love that approach. And it sounds like to be the skeptic, you're actually leaning in quite a bit. So kudos to you. Last question. I would love to hear from your perspective, if there's somebody who's following this and is wanting to bring more innovation and more AI into the organization, what's a practical kind of low lift first step they should start with?
Yeah, I think that you have to pick one very small, low stakes workflow or action and explicitly tell the team that you would like them to experiment with it with AI. So the boundary of the project is very defined, but how they apply AI is very open. so that they are able to go deep on different tools, try different approaches. There isn't one like, oh, just use this model and try it. It's sort of like apply AI to this workflow, apply AI to this part of your job. And then that narrowing really gives them the ability to go deeper and come back and report out sort of like what they saw about that experience. I think that for us, having it narrowly defined is beneficial to start and to kind of play in.
And I think what you said there is really smart, those guardrails, because if you just tell someone, go play with AI, like I think there's so much out there that it can be overwhelming. So I think you're spot on as a leader, if you're thinking about how to bring this in, of giving your people some framework to work within. And it's, the same way we do so many other projects as leaders, as we say, this is the space you have to work within, but you have the creativity within that space to figure out what's the best way. So I love that you're pulling that approach through. Janelle, thank you so much for taking the time today. You had such good insights about how we can bring innovation into our culture, how we can make that part of the work, whether it's AI or any other thing that we're trying to do within our organization. So thank you again so much for making the time.
Oh, thank you. It was such a pleasure.
That's it for today, everybody. And of course, continue to carry on. Have a great one, everyone.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.